You have your policy idea, your passion you want to turn into policy. But how do you make sure you have the best bill with the best chance of winning? Well, you talk with other people, advocates, lawmakers, people impacted by your policy. But how do you do this? And how do you incorporate their feedback, perspective, and ideas into your bill? How do you negotiate the best possible bill to turn your passion into policy? Well, keep watching to find out. Hi everyone, I'm David Smith, and I run Inthrive Advocacy Solutions, your solution for lobbying, advocacy, and strategic planning. Before launching this firm, I was leading advocates in Virginia, and we brought real changes to our criminal justice system. Also worked for a senior legislator in the House of Delegates where I ran her commerce and energy docket. Now, I'm bringing what I've learned through mentors and hard knocks to you. Welcome to Better Advocacy in 10 minutes or less. This is a series of videos helping you become a better advocate so you can turn your passion into policy. Today, we're talking about how to negotiate for your best possible bill before session starts. This is another one of those preseason videos, focusing on the time when the legislature is not in session. It's a different environment during session, and we'll be covering that in a different video. But today, we're going to cover 4 topics: your starting point and non-negotiables, friendly amendments, suggestions from advocates that aren't so great, and suggestions from elected officials. Now, before you start negotiating, you need to know where you're starting from and what your goal is. This doesn't have to be a drafted bill at this point, since the legislative session may be months away. But you do need to have an understanding of what you want to do and what you think is essential, those non-negotiables. Think of this as a map showing a bunch of trails that get you to a mountaintop. The summit is the non-negotiable policy goal, while the trailhead is where you are now. And all the different trails are the different ways you can move forward. Some will take you to places beside your policy goal. Some will dead end or be overgrown. Some might be dangerous, and some are more difficult, while others are easier. The purpose of negotiating is to find the best trail to get you to the summit. All right, and when you do that, you have to have a starting point, the trailhead. So before you start this hike, that is reaching out beyond your coalition, you want to have a policy ask and an idea of how to put this into a bill. You may already have something drafted or a piece of model legislation from a national organization, but let's be honest, very rarely is this first draft what becomes your bill, and very rarely does your bill become law without some amendments along the way. So, to be prepared for these negotiations, you want to have a strong grasp of what your non-negotiable points are. That is, if they removed X from my bill, I could no longer support it. Or, this is my fallback position in case my initial policy ask doesn't have a chance of passing. It's okay if everything is non-negotiable. If that's the only way you'd be satisfied with your policy ask becoming law, then go with that. But understand that this may make it harder to get your bill passed. Now, when I'm hiking, I sometimes discover a trail that's more beautiful, fun, or interesting than my original route, and I end up taking it instead, and my hike becomes better than I planned. In this analogy, these are friendly amendments. Once you've started talking with other people, politicians, advocates, and stakeholders, someone else may have a way to improve your bill that you think is genius. In fact, it made me kind of jealous you didn't think of it first. These are the friendly amendments, ones that you're happy to add to your bill. You want to thank them for their idea, incorporate it into your bill proposal, and then share those changes with them to make sure you got it right, and start using this new draft in your negotiations. Not only do you have a better bill draft, you also have another person or organization that has been brought into your bill. And the more groups that have been brought into your bill, the more groups will fight with you to turn your passion into policy. Now, sometimes suggestions from advocates just aren't so great. See, when I'm hiking, I get to a trail junction where both options lead me to the summit, but I don't always know which is better. This is what happens when you get a suggestion from an advocate that you're just unsure about. Just like you, other advocates don't know everything. Sometimes their advice can be really poor, maybe even detrimental to your goal. You need to handle these situations with grace and finesse. You don't want to include their feedback, but at the same time, you don't want to alienate them either. Depending on your relationship with them, you have two good options. First, be honest with them. Tell them their idea takes away from the goal of your bill and explain why you are sticking with your original plan. This is most important with those close allies you plan to be working with. The other option is to thank them for their suggestions and then move on. Unless they're deeply invested in your work, they probably won't be following what you're doing that closely. They'll be honored that you came to them, but won't hold it against you if you don't take their suggestions. Just don't tell them you are when you really aren't. The goal is to keep these folks as allies, so they'll help get your bill passed, or at least won't undermine it. Now, suggestions from elected officials are like talking to a park ranger and getting their suggestions. Sometimes they tell you a trail is closed and you can't take it. Other times they give you a suggestion of their favorite trails, and it's up to you to figure out the way that best fits your goals. But since these are negotiations with the people actually voting on your bill, they are particularly important. At this stage, you're spending your time with supporters or possible supporters of your bill. If you know someone is going to be a hard no on your policy idea, then you don't need their ideas. But if it's someone who you may be able to influence and have them support your bill, then you should definitely be including them in these early conversations. Now, back to their suggestions for the bill. Even if your initial reaction is to reject their idea, ask probing questions. Why do they think this change to your bill is valuable? Why do they think it will bring on more supporters? Do they have some inside information that makes them think your bill won't pass as you have it written? Now, not every legislator has the same power, so you don't need to treat every legislator's suggestion with equal weight. The views of a freshman member of the minority party won't be very influential amongst their peers. But the endorsement or rejection of a senior legislator in the majority party can guarantee passage or death of your bill. If you decide to include their suggestions, let them know, thank them for their feedback, and tell them you value their contributions. If you decide to not include their suggestions, let them know gently. You want them in the loop, and you want to give them a chance to support your bill later on. And that brings up a final point when discussing your bill proposal with legislators before the legislative session, or really at any time. These conversations should be kept private. Keep them to your coalition or supporters. Negotiations on bills happen all the time, and if there is disagreement, it should be kept internal. Once disagreements become public, shared through social media or the press, it makes it that much harder for politicians to negotiate. I've seen legislators lose their ability or will to fight for a stronger bill because advocates have shared internal negotiation disagreements with the press. When egos get bruised, it's a lot harder to work together. There you have it. You made sure the other advocates' voices were heard in your bill creation, kept the politicians, and now, through your hard work on negotiations, your bill is set up to pass. You reached that mountain summit. Congratulations. Now, I hope this short video has shown you the path to successful negotiations before a legislative session. What's been your experience? Do you have other tips and strategies? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the Inthrive Advocacy channel to get notifications of new videos. Be sure to check back every Friday for a new Better Advocacy in 10 minutes or less video.